There are too many significant members of Canberra's community here for me to acknowledge you all by name, and of course that's not why you're here. The family hope to see you all later this afternoon to thank you personally. We're joined by members of the ACT Legislative Assembly, members of the New South Wales Parliament, local and interstate federal members and senators, and a number of people who've formerly served in those parliaments. Please know how much your presence is appreciated, every one of you. Many other community leaders are here from other sectors of our society, and we greatly appreciate that. I particularly acknowledge the presence of many of Kurt's friends and colleagues in Canberra's media. We appreciate you being here in your private capacity, and we're very grateful for how you've done your job for a grieving community while respecting the family's wishes today and in the past 20 days. Thank you. For now, on behalf of all, if Chief Minister, I hope you'll accept our thanks on behalf of all those people for their words over the past 20 days and their presence here today. Our thanks are also due to you personally, Katie. You've been so kind and strong for everyone since the accident, and your whole public life is an example to us of how we have to live in the years ahead. Thank you. The family is quite aware, as are all the Labor Party people present, that not everyone here is a Labor person and this is not a party event. We were very proud to count this young man as one of our own, and there is a fierce grief in our tribe today, but I hope you all feel included here, whatever your politics or beliefs. However you knew Kurt, I'm certain you will see the Kurt you knew in our service this afternoon. To the Greens Party and Liberal Party members of the Legislative Assembly present with us today, you are very sincerely welcomed, and we take your presence as a mark of deep respect. Finally, let me acknowledge all of you. Philip, Jane, Yasmin and Christopher are so thankful, overwhelmed and comforted by the cards, beautiful flowers, letters, messages and texts that you have sent them from close to home and from around the world. In the depths of these days, it has made a difference to them. To those of you who've gone to amazing lengths to travel here, and to those of you too far away to travel but who are here with us online and in spirit, a special thank you and acknowledgement. Our service will begin in a few moments with a welcome to country from Auntie Agnes Shea.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. I'm Auntie Agnes Shea, and I'm the Senior Ngunnawal Elder of the Ngunnawal people. And I am very proud and honoured to be given the honour to be here to speak this afternoon at the funeral of Kirk's dead. And I'd like to start off by doing the welcome in the language of the Ngunnawal people. Nagana, Yarabai, Yangu, which means you're welcome to leave your footprints on Ngunnawal land, or in other words, welcome to Ngunnawal country. I'm very sorry to hear about Kirk's death in a bus crash while he was holidaying in Bolivia. Kirk was born in Canberra in 1988, away from his 26th birthday. He was far too young to be taken from us. I would like to, on behalf of the Ngunnawal people, the many families, and my family, we send our condolence to Kirk's parents, Jane and Philip, his brother Chris and sister Jasmine, as well as his extended families and many friends. Family is so important. But Kirk's death is a tragedy for us all, and the whole of Canberra grieves with us today. I've been to many events with Clerk over the years as he worked for the ACT government and in the New South Wales government for the local member for Monaro. Kirk had a commitment to reconciliation that was both genuine and practical. Before Kirk left for South America, he was working with the Labor Indigenous Network on a proposal to consult the United Ngunnawal Elders Council on a new recognition of Canberra's traditional custodians. The ACT government's current policy is that all public speeches by government representatives include a recognition of the original custodians of Canberra. Kirk wanted to strengthen this recognition through an introductory phrase spoken in local Aboriginal language, instead of the current English acknowledgement. He passed a motion at the ACT Labor Conference for the ACT government to work with United Ngunnawal Elders Council to review its recognition of the original custodians with a view to strengthen the acknowledgement of the Ngunnawal people. Kirk was always respected and recognised that any change that is made in this area should be done upon recommendation from the United Ngunnawal Elders Council. Unfortunately, to Kirk's death, he was not able to start the consultation with us on this proposal. But we hope that someone will carry on Kirk's legacy and fulfil his dream. Kirk's work in the community is summed up in a quote from the Indigenous Labour Network convener, Bernie Stewart Fitzpatrick. Everything you did was for the greater good because you wanted to make Australia and the ACT a better place, and the fact that you consulted with and worked with the Indigenous Labour Network was a bonus. You're a good bloke, Kirk Steele, and you'll be sorely missed by many. Kirk's action while he was living have shown us all what can be achieved in such a short time. And now I'd just like to pay my tribute to Kirk from myself and my family. And it's called For Those I Love, For Those Who Loved Me. When I am gone, release me. Let me go. I have so many things to see and do. You mustn't tie yourself to me with tears. Be happy that we had so many years. I have you, my loves, and you can only guess how much you gave to me of happiness. I thank you for the love you have all shown, but now it's time I travel on alone. So grieve a while for me if grieve you must. Then let your grief be comforted by trust. It's only for a while that we must part. So bless those memories that lie within your heart. I won't be far away, for life goes on. If you need me, call and I will come. Though you can't see or touch me, I'll be near. And if you listen with all your heart, then you will hear all my love around you, soft and clear. And then when you must come this way alone, I'll greet you with a smile and a welcome home. So I'd like to thank again Kirk's parents, his sister, for giving me the honour to be here to farewell Kirk Steele. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you.
Kurt was a young man beloved by his family, and it is fitting that their words are heard first. Kurt's parents, Philip and Jane, are here with us, and they have asked me to read Jane's eulogy for Kurt on both their behalf. I'm writing the first part of this eulogy sitting at a picture window in our hotel in La Paz, Bolivia. My view shows a run-down, dilapidated city with makeshift houses, decaying buildings and people struggling to make a living. Rising up from the clamour of the city is a magnificent mountain covered in snow. The city is in shadow, but the sun is shining on the mountain at the moment. We can't be angry at this city, La Paz, Bolivia, near where Kurt passed away. The people here have shown us only kindness and compassion. When they haven't known our purpose in visiting, they have wanted to joke and laugh. And when they have known our purpose in being there, they have looked at us with tears in their eyes. Kurt would have his work cut out for him if his hometown had ever been La Paz in Bolivia. Too much work to even contemplate. Too much poverty to bear. Buildings in need of repair, roads to be built to replace dirt tracks, a welfare system to be built for the poor. Life is tough here, and I know Kurt would have to try to fix it if he was part of this community. After the tragic accident in which Kurt was killed and Gemma was seriously injured, we travelled to La Paz to bring our beautiful boy home. We visited Kurt in La Paz on our first day, and we were able to see him and say our goodbyes. He was surrounded by flowers and candles, and he was in good hands. It was, as you can imagine, the most intensely emotional experience we have known. We told Kurt that we loved him, but that is something we always said to Kurt every day or every time we saw him. He was in no doubt of our love for him. At last, after many hold-ups and complications, Kurt was brought back to his hometown, where he was born, back again amongst family, friends and colleagues, back amongst those who love him most. For anyone who ever met Kurt liked or loved him. Much has been spoken over the past couple of weeks about Kurt's leadership in high school, college, university and in the Labor Party, and no one is more proud of these achievements than us, his family. However, at home, he was the youngest child who watched and followed his brother and sister's every move. Kurt would often seek Yasmin's advice on things because her opinion mattered. They liked to text each other funny jokes. Whenever Kurt or Chris were in Melbourne for a work-related visit, they would always try to catch up with Yasmin and Anthony. Kurt's opinions, tastes and sense of humour were mostly in line with Yasmin's, with the possible exception of her taste in music. But Kurt, though feeling embarrassed, would stand bravely at the music shop counter and ask for a Britney Spears CD when choosing her birthday present. Yasmin, Chris and Kurt shared a common sense of humour, and Kurt held Yasmin in very high esteem, as he did Anthony, Yasmin's husband. As for Christopher, he and Kurt were joined at the hip. From the time that Kurt could crawl, he would be following Chris. They played together as children, they shared their toys, they never fought. As adults, they would show their affection for each other by putting each other into a headlock. They were laughing and grinning the whole time, but I always tried to break it up in case one of them got hurt. Kurt was so proud of Yasmin and Christopher, without them realising that they were Kurt's mentors. Yasmin and Chris used to call Kurt the Little Prince. They believed that because he was the youngest, he received more attention and was given more of a free rein. Philip and I don't agree, as all three of our children are precious. Kurt followed Chris into student politics in the Labor Party. Our dinner table conversations were always wide-ranging and influenced by their grandfather's political sense of fairness for all, rich or poor. I'm hoping that Kurt is in heaven with Dad at the moment and talking what they like to talk about most, politics. My last moments with Kurt were spent at our family home with Philip and I having dinner with close friends from Newcastle who were staying overnight on their way to the snow. Chris was also there with Curtis. Kurt was leaving the next day in a friend's car to drive to Sydney and then to South America, and then to fly to South America. Near the end of the evening, when we moved from the table into the lounge room, Kurt and I sat on our two-seater sofa together. Conversation flowed amongst our family and friends, but at one point, Kurt and I looked at each other and held hands. We both smiled at each other, and I know that Kurt knew I was acknowledging his excitement, unspoken, about the trip ahead. He knew we would miss him, he knew we had concerns about the trip, but had agreed to keep in touch every couple of days, which is exactly what he did. As we said our goodbyes to Kurt at the front door before he headed off to his apartment in Braddon, we hugged and kissed him, told him we loved him, and to have lots of fun. Philip's last words to Kurt were, "Kurt, if you need me, I will come and get you." Never did Philip imagine how soon that would happen. Philip and I, Yasmin and Chris, thought that we would have Kurt forever. Forever meaning until our time had come to leave this world. But it was not to be. There are no regrets. We could not have loved him more, nor said anything else than was already said to him every day. No parents were more proud. All our children know that they are so loved. We have always treasured our many family times together. Our annual family holiday this year will not be the same. One of us will be missing. This will be our 30th consecutive year of holidaying together. People used to say to Philip and I not to expect our children to want to accompany us to Byron once they reached their late teens, but we knew that all three loved it there so much and treasured our special time together. All three children cannot always make it on this family holiday at the same time due to work commitments, but they certainly try their best to be there if possible. All three children were there last year, aged 32, 27 and 25 years. We know that in the last few hours before his death, Kurt and Gemma reflected for some time on how happy they were and how fortunate they were to have grown up in Canberra with so many good friends, caring and supportive families, career opportunities and happy workplaces. Kurt loved his life, but more importantly, he loved the people in his life, the people here today. It will be Kurt's birthday on Monday, in 3 days' time. We were looking forward to him arriving back home on 17th September and then celebrating with him on 22nd September. He would have been 26 years old. The tragedy of it all is that Kurt's potential has been so cut short. We will always wonder to what heights he may have climbed in his professional life and what joy we may have shared with him in his personal life. Kurt, we only had you for such a short time in this world, but you not only brought our family great joy, you brought joy to all who met you. Your smile is your signature, your heart is bigger than the moon, your love of life and everything in it was immense and contagious. Our love for you continues, as always, unabated. You will be missed so much, but spoken of constantly as though you haven't left us at all. You never intended to leave so early, but you were able to fit so much into your 25 years, more than most people could fit into a full lifetime. We kiss you, we hug you, we embrace you, we will love you always and forever. It is written, there are some who bring light so great to the world that even after they have gone, the light remains. Philip, Jane, thank you. Yasmin Milnes and Chris Steele will now speak about their brother Kurt.
I've drafted a number of media releases over the years, but I never thought I'd have to write a statement on my little brother's death like I did a few Sundays ago. In the early years, Kurt was like the friend you couldn't get rid of. But Kurt and I were close friends. He would have been my best man if I had the opportunity to get married. I have plenty of anecdotes about Kurt, but the things we remember often aren't the important things. It's the moments in between the photographs that matter. The times we went running around the lake or went to the gym and talked politics. When we played soccer, most recently for Duppers United. The surfing, the snowboarding and the rounds of golf, watching soccer and playing FIFA on the Xbox. The time we went to Japan, the drinks, the parties, the festivals, the Friday night dinners at our parents' place. The advice and the encouragement. The campaigns in ACT and Monero, and last year in campaign headquarters in Melbourne. Or when we worked across the square at the Legislative Assembly. There was also a time when there was wall-to-wall Labor governments around Australia, but also wall-to-wall steel at UC and ANU. Kurt was known to follow in my footsteps, but he often outshone me. In my area of policy, there's a guy called Jim Heckman, who also happens to be a Nobel laureate in economics. And what Heckman says is that the most important predictor of life success is a person's character. It's even more important than language and cognitive skills. Kurt was certainly an immense character. He is my brother.
I went up the mountain this morning, Kurt. Just like we did the last time we were together. I was in Canberra and I texted you to say I was at Mum and Dad's. You texted back, "I'll be there in 20 minutes with my runners. Be ready." When I look back on my phone, a lot of the messages start something like this. "Spasman, what are you doing on the weekend of the 1st and the 2nd of October? I'm going to be in Melbourne for work. Is the key in the same place as usual? Oi, Spasmeister, I can't come for dinner tonight. What are your plans for the weekend though? Let's hang out if you're not too busy." Kurt, you always made me laugh. Not just, ha ha, that's funny, but the kind of joke that stays with me and makes me chuckle days later when I'm by myself. As I live in Melbourne, many of our conversations with one another would take place via text message. This particular conversation that I'm about to share is typical and reflects the kind of relationship we have with one another. I don't think we had spoken for a couple of weeks, and you sent this out of the blue one Saturday morning. As usual, there was no hello. It just started with, "Would you rather change gender every time you sneeze, or forever be mistaking babies as muffins?" Excuse me. I instantly replied, "Mistake babies as muffins. Would you rather be a pencil or an elastic band?" You replied with gangster spelling, "Pencil for sure. What room can't you go into?" I replied, "A mushroom, because there's not mushroom inside." This about sums up our relationship. We didn't need to say hello. How are you? How's everything going? The fact that we could take each other for granted shows how much we cared for one another. We knew our relationship with one another was solid, so we could afford to cut the small talk and just pick up where we left off. Although the words often went unspoken, the care we had for one another was always felt. Kurt, I don't know if you ever knew this, but whenever I think of you, I always think of this photo. You were so skinny. You'd just come back from grade 3 camp with nits and some rare form of bird pneumonia that you promptly gave to me. I love picturing you standing on those books, your cute head cackling. You had so much energy even then when you were sick. Mum often speaks about how you looked up to me, but it was often I who looked up to you, Kurt. You made me a better person. It was a privilege to be your sister. I'm so proud that you live your life the way that you did. You have been to Europe and Japan, an in-joke in our family. You've been to Thailand, Singapore, and we're on the trip of a lifetime in South America. In the month leading up to a major overseas holiday, most people would have spent their time planning, packing and saving their money. No, not you, Kurt. In the month leading up to your trip to South America, you spent 4 days in Singapore. You bought a season ticket to the snow and went down to Perisher twice, snowboarding. And the weekend before your departure date, you also spent 3 days loving life and music in the sun at Splendour in the Grass Music Festival in Byron. Every minute of your life was well lived. You were always out there somewhere in the world soaking it all up. Kurt, I always thought you entered politics with the sole goal of changing the legislation regarding the labelling of clothing sizes. In particular, changing the labels of hats from one size fits all to one size fits most. You had an extremely large head, and often joked that it had its own gravitational field. Rather than attracting small moons, however, Kurt, people gravitated towards you. There are so many people here today, Kurt. And if you're looking down on us, I know it's going to be hard to share yourself across all of us, all of the time. So I wanted to just let you know when I'll be looking for you and when I'm going to need you around. I'll miss the way we used to pretend to not know whether to hug or shake hands, and how you always used to try and give me a weak handshake. I will miss doing the washing up with you at Byron Bay, not just because it's going to take longer to dry all the dishes now, but because we used to sing and carry on and tell the same jokes every year. I'll look for you every time I go for a run. Let's face it, you always got to the top of the mountain first anyway. I'll miss the fact that you won't be there to play cards with us in the tent, and how we would never let you sit next to Mum because it always led to favouritism and cheating. Kurt, the first thing I thought of when Dad told me you had been killed was, who's going to hug Mum now? I mean, Chris and I have arms, but it just won't be the same. You were the heart of our family, the cuddly one, the measured voice that brought us all back together when we had arguments, the element that made us stronger as a family. Kurt, it was just bad luck that it was you, the person we all looked out for the most, our little prince. Every fibre of my being is sad. But every time I think of you, I laugh and smile and light up. Because every memory I have with you is a happy one. I love you, bro.
The last person to have the gift of Kurt Steele's company in this life was Gemma Barnes. Gemma is recovering from her injuries and has returned to Australia. She is with us today and will speak now from her seat.
Steele, my friend, my brother, my protector, thank you. I thank you for my life. It's a miracle I'm alive, and I truly believe it was you that was my guardian angel that night. In the years that we've known each other, you've always been calming, simplifying issues that I made a big deal of. Whether it be why the boy at school didn't like me, or what career path I should take in life, you always knew what to say. We were trapped. I was lying next to you, crying and screaming for help. And even then, in your unconscious state, you calmed me, rubbing your foot up and down my leg, reassuring me that everything was going to be okay. I felt honoured that I was there for your final moments, but I already felt honoured just to be your friend. You are the most kind-hearted person I know. You are a true inspiration, and the best thing about it was that you didn't even realise it. I've made a promise to myself to be more like you. Philip, Jane, Yasmin and Chris. Kurt and I had many conversations about our families back home, and I know how much he adored you and how proud he was to call you his family. Kurt, thanks for an amazing holiday, an amazing 10 years, and being a blessing in each of our lives. I'll always love you.
Thank you, Gemma. That was very brave. Kurt loved music, and he loved the work of his friends Dom and Sebastian Lavers. He was friends to their whole family. The Lavers join us now to perform Our Little Empire in tribute of their friend Kurt Steele.
Firstly, it's a real honour for my brother Seb and I to play a song for Kurt today. He was a great friend of our whole family, especially our little brother Ollie, who would love to be up here as well. Our mum once even told our sister Sophie that Kurt's the type of guy that she should be going for. Sorry, Sophie. Kurt was at my first ever gig in the basement of our family home, and ever since he's been a big supporter of the band. So we're really proud to be able to play for him once more.
The world we built together has grown so cold, and your eyes like stormy weather have taken hold. What happened to forever, I'll never know, but we've come too far to ever just let it go. Now our little empire has gone and fallen to the ground. Can you hear me calling out? And our little empire has gone and left me in this town, and there's no one else around. The walls have all been ruined, it's all my fault. I should never have let you in to steal my soul, 'cause now I feel as naked as I was born, and I'm so scared to wake up and face the dawn. Now our little empire has gone and fallen to the ground. Can you hear me calling out? And our little empire has gone and left me in this town, and there's no one else around. But if you walk in my mind, well, I think that you would find there's a light deep inside, and it won't ever die. And our little empire has gone and fallen to the ground. Can you hear me calling out? And our little empire has gone and left me in this town, and there's no one else around. And there's no one else around.
Thanks, boys. As so many of you know, Kurt had a genius for friendship. His closest personal friends were with him for many years from their earliest schooling. Bryce Logan, Daniel Hodges, Greg Ashford, Stephen Holmes and Jeff Allen want you to know some things about their friend Kurt.
Curdy. Kurt Alexander Craig Steele, Curtolino, Stixley, Super Pig, Garnia Fructus, Veggie Samosa, Twinkle Toes, Lawrence of Arabia, and K Steele, Coast to Coast. These are just a few of the names that we knew Kurt by, none of them necessarily having any more meaning than any of the others, but each of them still holding a very special place within each of us. And if I were to ask each of you today to describe Kurt, eventually we'd start to use the same terms. He was genuine, he was loyal, he was a leader and a joker. He was someone who inspired and someone who loved unconditionally. He was larger than life. There's no amount of words that can adequately describe who he was or the connection that he had with so many people. But hopefully we can share a few of our experiences with the Kurt we knew, the Kurt that we loved, and you'll see that he was the same man that you knew as well.
It's pretty clear Kurt was an awesome bloke. But there's one thing that really stood out to me and us. He was inclusive. Kurt always was open to meeting new people. He didn't judge, and he made sure you were included. Yep, even if you voted Liberal. At the beginning of high school, I used to walk to school by myself. One day I thought I'd take a different route to school. I bumped into Kurt. From then on, I walked to school with him and Kurt and Daniel. One day, I slept in and I thought, surely Kurt will go on without me. But sure enough, as I walked to school, there was Kurt waiting, making sure I wasn't left out. Everywhere I went, I noticed Kurt making sure people were included, whereas at a party or having a quiet beer. Oh, well, Kurt never really had a quiet beer. I'd like to challenge us all to continue some of Kurt's work in the world. For me, and hopefully some of you, be making sure I include people wherever I go.
Kurt was never out to impress when he was around friends, or even people he haven't even met yet. But he would impress everyone regardless. He would always wear some crazy outfits, say some outrageous things. And without effort, people would laugh with him and fall in love with him, in love with the brilliance that he brought to the table. It was contagious, and all he had to do was be himself. Kurt was all about his family. He would always be honest with the boys and when he had an important family occasion. And he'd make sure that nothing got in the way of attending that event. It was admirable and obvious that his family meant the world to him. Not only did he consider his own family important, but also all of ours and everyone else's. He would always be polite, courteous, and not afraid to be his witty self around all of our families. I can think on many occasions that he has enjoyed a few beers with our folks, our siblings, and he would always treat them just as he would treat us. Another great attribute that Kurt possessed was his ability to go a few months or even a year without seeing one of us, and effortlessly picking up the relationship as if we had not been away for longer than that weekend. All in all, he did all of these things without asking for anything in return. Anything to do with his family, his friends, work, or even Canberra was never an effort for Kurt. It was his absolute pleasure. A good friend did have a really large head. However, nothing can compete with the size of his heart, and none of us are ever going to forget that.
Kurt was truly an amazing man in so many ways. It was incredible how much he was able to fit into his tragically short life. I don't know of anyone who could achieve and experience so much in 25 years. Kurt recently went to Singapore with work for a week, and upon his return, over the next 2 weekends, went to the snow for a couple of days, then went to Byron Bay for a music festival, kept his regular Sunday indoor soccer commitments, and all this right before he was about to embark on a 2-month trip of a lifetime through South America. Kurt waited for no man. His life was so busy, yet he managed to have time for everyone in it. You hear the saying, if there were more people like him in the world, it would be a better place, thrown around a fair bit. In this case, it can't be more true. But there will only ever be one Kurt Steele. No one will be able to achieve what he has done. No one will be able to touch so many hearts or influence so many lives. And no one will ever be able to walk around with that massive, goofy, infectious grin on his face like Kurt did. Kurt was everyone's mate. I know I considered him as my best mate, but at the same time, I know I'm not the only one that felt that way. When I moved to Canberra, Kurt was my first friend, and he continued to be my best friend for the next 19 years of my life. We did everything together. So much that we used to get asked if we were brothers. The answer is yes. I love you, mate.
Anyone that met Kurt instantly took a liking to him and realised what a special person he was. It was impossible not to. His bubbly personality and enormous lust for life were infectious and couldn't help but rub off onto those around him. Friends of mine from work in Erindale College would always comment how full of life Kurt was and always asked if he was going to be at gatherings. He was the guy everyone wanted to have around them. Kurt also had an amazing knack of motivating people. Whether it was simply going to a party, attending an event like the Multicultural Festival, encouraging people to travel the world, or helping out with a university, state or federal election. Somehow Kurt's big cheeky grin and positivity would pull you in until the next thing you knew, you're up at 5 a.m. hammering political signage into the ground along Adelaide Avenue. That was Kurt though. He encouraged everyone to make the most out of every day and not let the opportunity pass you by. One thing I've learned out of this experience is that life is fragile. I have no doubt that although Kurt was only here for a short 25 years, he has inspired everyone in this room, and I'm sure countless others, to be the absolute best they can be. So let's not let what Kurt did for us be forgotten. Live every day like it's your last, cherish every moment spent with loved ones, book that travel and get involved, because that's what Kurt would have wanted us to do.
We have a saying amongst our group of friends, springtime of youth. We wanted to make the most of our younger years, and Kurt was certainly a testament to this. The amount of people that he met, the activities that he fit in, and the achievements that he packed into those 25 years puts many a grown adult to shame. There wasn't a milestone or significant event in the last 20 years that he missed. He was such a constant in all our lives that I know many of us saw him not just as our mate, but as our brother. I saw him as my soulmate. Phil, Jane, Yasmin and Chris, thank you for allowing us into your lives and into Kurt's. We're all lucky to have been able to spend so much time with him, and the person that we all fell in love with is a credit to all of you, the amazing family that you all are. I tried to think of how Kurt would end a speech like this, but I know that no combination of words that I can put together would help ease the heartache that so many of us are feeling. What I do think he would say, though, is this: don't fear death and don't fear loss. Neither of these are things that you can control. Instead, get out and do more. Take photos, create memories and build relationships. Because when our time here is finished, what we should aim to leave behind is what Kurt has left for us. An empire of people and memories, brought together by one who loved and gave more than he ever took.
Kurt was a lucky boy. Kurt's is a terrible loss to his family and friends. Kurt is also a huge loss to the Canberra community. The The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Canberra, Professor Stephen Parker, dearly wished to be here today. The realities of international travel defeated him. To reflect on Kurt's achievements during his life at UC and since, we're joined by the Acting Vice-Chancellor of the University, Professor Nick Klomp.
As a small demonstration of the huge impact Kurt had and continues to have on staff and students at the University of Canberra, and the great relationship he forged with the Vice-Chancellor, I will read here what Professor Stephen Parker wrote personally upon hearing the news of Kurt's death. The Vice-Chancellor wrote, "My colleagues and I at UC were saddened by the news that alumnus Kurt Steele passed away in a tragic bus accident while on holiday in Bolivia, aged only 25. Kurt grew up in Canberra and attended Melrose High School and Canberra College before studying at the University of Canberra. While at UC, he was active in the University of Canberra Students' Association and served as its president. He was also a student member of our academic board and generally well known by many at the university for his constructive and cheerful contribution to different aspects of life. Kurt graduated in 2009 with a Bachelor of Communication, including a major in public relations and a minor in law. He went on to work for the New South Wales politician Steve One before joining the Office of ACT Treasurer and Deputy Chief Minister Andrew Barr, where he worked as a media advisor. Kurt had a keen interest in sport, particularly football. He followed Aston Villa and continued to email me after leaving UC whenever Villa were playing my team, Newcastle United. At such a young age, Kurt had already achieved so much. His passion, drive and personality will be remembered by everyone who knew him, and his strong ties to the university will be cherished by fellow students, alumni and staff. Stephen Parker.
Thank you, Nick. Kurt and the Steele family have a long connection to the Wan family, and the Honourable Steve Wan, MLC, was a boss and a friend to Kurt Steele. I invite Steve to speak now.
Thanks very much. I spoke about Kurt in the New South Wales Parliament last week. It was a place that Kurt worked for a while. He wasn't there a hell of a long time, but like everywhere he went, he left a great impression. He came to work for me, as you've just heard, after he finished at Canberra University in my electorate office. Lee Evans helped him polish up his press release skills after his degree, and he quickly joined my team in the ministerial office in Sydney. And for some people, you would have thought the idea of joining the New South Wales Labor government in the last couple of years before the last election might not have been something they were all that enthusiastic about. A bit of a daunting task to join us at that time, but not for Kurt, because he was a person who we've heard from so many people was unfailingly committed to the cause. He was loyal and dedicated. And the one thing that struck me from the hundreds of tributes and comments that we've seen about Kurt is that so many people just thought what a great bloke he was. The one thing I guess that struck me, and I guess you get, we all have our sphere where we know Kurt from. Many of my former staff, and certainly my wife Cherie, who's here, thought him as our Kurt, our Kurtie, many of them called him. But one thing that we see from all those tributes and from everything people have said here today is just how many people thought of Kurt as their Kurt, as our Kurt. He had a personality that made everyone want to be with him. A cheeky smile that so many people mention. It pops up in photo after photo, reminding us of what a great bloke he was. But the fact he was a great bloke is only part of the story. Kurt was a person you could rely on. When he took on a task, he got the task done and then some. He was always driving on, pushing for something better. Kurt was a rare person in a society that is so often cynical about the political process and the people who work in it. Kurt was a part of a great Labor movement. He knew that all the work, getting the volunteers on the phones, organising the faction, providing advice to people like me and to Andrew, contributes to a much bigger goal. He knew, I hope, that the work he did made a difference. And we all know that given the chance, he would have gone on to make an even bigger difference, making our community a better, a fairer and a healthier place to live. Jane and Phil, during the time Kurt worked with me, I heard so much about you and your family. Kurt loved his family. He was proud of the values that you gave him. He was proud of the two of you and your commitment to education. I heard about that a lot. And I think, as everyone has seen here today, a close family with huge love. I know there won't be a day when you won't think about Kurt, but I know that amidst the pain there'll be pride in a young man who spent his all too short time with us so well. He made a difference. He enriched the lives of the people he knew. And there are a lot of people in this theatre today, and many others who would have been here if they possibly could have been, who share the feeling of tragic loss, who will grieve for him and remember him. They also remember good times, and I hope for many here they'll see him as an inspiration for their work in politics as well. Jane and Phil, Chris and Yasmin, we can't take away the grief that you feel, but if it helps, we share it. And we thank you for sharing Kurt with us for the time we had him. Rest in peace, Kurt.
Sometime in the 1960s, Jack Lang told Paul Keating, "You think you're young, you think you have forever. You're not, you don't. Get out there and run like hell." It was a conversation that changed Australia. Kurt Steele was a brilliant young Labor staffer, campaigner and activist, a sublime servant of our grand old party. To speak on behalf of the Labor Party in this city, I'd like to welcome the best man I know, the Deputy Chief Minister of the ACT and Deputy Leader of the Labor Party in the ACT Legislative Assembly, Andrew Barr.
To the Steele family, Jane and Philip, Yasmin and Chris and their partners, and the extended family, to Auntie Agnes, thank you for that welcome to country. Chief Minister, ministerial colleagues, parliamentary colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. It's just heartbreaking to be here to say goodbye to our great friend Kurt. But we know Kurt was blessed by the love and support of his family, amazing network of friends. They're all fantastic people, well respected and big contributors to our community. And so it's no surprise that with this amazing base of love and support that Kurt grew into the outstanding young man that we all knew and that we loved. And like so many others here today, I knew Kurt as a colleague, as a political activist, as a passionate advocate and as a leader, but most of all, I knew him as a mate. I enjoyed his company and I look forward always to discussing the big issues of the day with him. Between us, I'm fairly certain that we tackled every single sports management issue, team selection, player recruitment issue that was before the nation in recent times. A recurring topic with Kurt and I was what was needed to get the Raiders back into premiership contention. This was something that was very close to Kurt's heart. When he moved from what I think we both considered the best job in ACT government, being tourism, events and sports advisor, and took over, frankly, what has to be one of the more challenging roles in ACT government, being my press secretary, his workload and responsibility increased significantly. He fielded the early morning phone calls from the media. He took all of the late night calls after events at community meetings or Labor Party branches. He was across everything, and he kept me well briefed on all of the issues. In politics, you're only ever as good as the team of people that you assemble around you. And Kurt was a standout leader in my team. He was admired, respected and cherished by his colleagues. We all enjoyed his company and that cheeky grin that generally preceded a request to do something we probably didn't want to do. Still fairly sure that Zumba class that I did, dancing with an oversized pearl-wearing pair, it was one of the last media events that Kurt and I did together as an example of that. Kurt combined being fun to work alongside with being talented, productive and committed. He simply did it all, from developing and implementing policy, organising at Labor conferences, grassroots campaigning, working with multiple stakeholders, the community groups, our business community and the media. He even dabbled in design. He created some pretty cool campaign t-shirts for me and then ripped off his own idea for some bloke called Kevin whilst working in Labor's national headquarters during last year's federal election. He always demonstrated intelligence and judgment and was a constant source of new ideas. This would have been impressive in a person twice his age. But what struck me most was Kurt's wisdom, his ability to think through an issue or a problem, his capacity for imaginative ideas and for going beyond the obvious or the cliched. Kurt understood that politics was more than about counting numbers, winning votes or framing a budget. It was about values, about vision and about outcomes for people. He saw this in the new brand for Canberra, which he was instrumental in developing. For Kurt, this was more than just a contemporary marketing strategy. It was a way of demonstrating the passion that he and others had for Canberra, a way of engaging people in a positive vision for the future and achieving social and economic outcomes. With so much going for him, Kurt was building an incredibly successful career. He'd assumed senior leadership roles within the Labor Party and his professional skills were in high demand. And amongst his colleagues, there was a genuine sense of inevitability that he would achieve even greater things. That guy will be a cabinet minister one day, was the common sentiment. But Kurt wasn't just about potential. He'd already achieved so much for Canberra, for the Labor Party, for the government, most importantly for the values and priorities that he held dear. And this has been made abundantly clear by the breadth and depth of the tributes in recent weeks. Kurt had a genuine passion for this city, which was born by more than just the innate love most feel for their hometown and for its struggling football team. He had a passion for the uniqueness of Canberra, for the growth of the city, socially, culturally and economically, for its coming of age, and not least the age of the hipster, which I think why he loved living in Braddon so much. He recognised that Canberra had reached somewhat of a tipping point, from a city where the young, the creative, the entrepreneurial felt the need to move away to fulfil their goals, to a city where you could stay and make your mark. And Kurt personified this. One of his endearing contributions to life in our office was the practical joke. Now, on the day our new office photocopier arrived, Kurt decided that it needed some additional features. And this, ladies and gentlemen, was the day that Ricoh voiceover technology was invented. This technology would allow users to give a verbal command to the photocopier and it would respond. Not dissimilar to Apple's Siri, I guess, so it sounds fairly plausible, doesn't it? However, this was a pretty elaborate ploy because the voiceover learning module just never seemed to learn. It required you to repeat your commands often and slowly, whilst the machine allegedly learnt your accent. And from his desk, Kurt would surreptitiously film his colleagues getting increasingly angry and frustrated whilst talking to a photocopier that just would not respond. He would then helpfully come out of his office, suggest that you try talking to the machine in different accents so that it might recognise your voice. So convincing was Kurt's ruse that this genuinely fooled people for weeks. And nearly everyone in the office fell victim. There's no doubt that Kurt's enthusiasm, his vitality and his humanity helped keep his colleagues sane through some trying personal and professional dramas. His ability to be positive, to find humour in difficult circumstances, was one of his greatest qualities. It's hard to comprehend that we're not going to see Kurt anymore. The shock and pain of his death have been felt deeply. And in a time of such sadness, it's difficult to know how to respond. I've found some comfort in the words of President Obama at Teddy Kennedy's funeral, where he said, "What we can do is to live our lives as best we can, with purpose, with love, and with joy. We can use each day to show those who are closest to us how much we care about them and treat others with the kindness and respect that we wish for ourselves. We can learn from our mistakes, we can grow from our failures, and we can strive at all costs to make a better world so that someday, if we are blessed with the chance to look back on our time here, we know that we spent it well, that we made a difference, and that our fleeting presence had a lasting impact on the lives of others. This is how Kurt lived his life. We are all better for having known him. We miss him terribly. We'll never forget him. Rest in peace, my friend."
There'll now be a reading of Nothing at All from Chris.
Death is nothing at all. I have only slipped away into the next room. I am I, and you are you. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by my old familiar name. Speak to me in the easy way you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed, at the little jokes we always enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without effort, without the ghost of a shadow in it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute unbroken continuity. What is death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am waiting for you for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. Nothing is past, nothing is lost. One brief moment and all will be as it was before. How we shall laugh at the trouble of parting when we meet again. Wipe your tears and don't cry if you really love me. Your smile is the peace of my heart.
Friends, the Steele family will depart the Playhouse shortly for a private interment and will join us later today. Everyone here is very warmly invited to attend a wake at the Canberra Labour Club in Belconnen. We'll be in the Fred Daly room, which will be open from around 3 p.m. Entry is off Chandler Street or from the car park behind the club, which is off Cameron Avenue. If you're planning to drink, and God knows I am, please leave your car at the club or don't drive. It's close to the bus interchange. There's a cab rank just across London Circuit. There's one at Chandler Street. And what's more, there'll be a tram departing from outside the theatre in 2019. Belconnen will be a good opportunity to condole with the Steele family personally. We're very grateful to the club's directors, members and staff, a number of whom are present with us today and who knew Kurt well, for their support. We hope to see you there. Good afternoon.